And as I look back in my life, I give the most thanks to those people that were my competition. They got the most out of me. They created the friction that I needed to kind of have that spark and blow up.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Ross Hamilton. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm really excited to be here.
Hey, glad to have you. So today's going to be pretty cool. Ross has a lot of experience in the real estate and also tech space. So, hey, Ross, give everybody a little background on what all you've been through.
Yeah, well, as you said that, a thought came to my head. There's really no difference anymore between real estate and tech. Every company is a tech company, whether you realize it or not. So, my background, I started out just as a ground hustler, a bird dog, just literally knocking on doors for an investor in my town. And I learned the game. Realized something at a really young age, Brian. The more people I was connected with, the more money I was able to make. So as I started to make money in real estate, I invested that to create a platform to connect investors. And I created connectedinvestors.com. We grew that into a network of a few million real estate investors and recently sold it to a Fortune 100 company for multi-generational wealth. First American. They are stock symbol FAF. They do one out of every 3 real estate closings in America. So it was an awesome, that's the cliff notes. From the dumpster to selling a tech company and everything in between. And this is a really exciting time to be in real estate. So you're really smart to be here and listening to Brian because he is very well connected with some of the best investors I've ever met.
Yeah, thanks. And you know what? So that's interesting because actually, I think in anything in business, you're going to be who you surround yourself with, right?
Yes.
So you were hustling first, bird dogging. And then you're like, okay, you wanted to branch into connecting people. What happened there? What were you thinking?
Yeah. Well, you know what? One of my favorite quotes is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And what I'm about to explain to you is how I've got in and done well in many different types of businesses in a lot of different verticals. So again, at a young age, I realized I had to surround myself with the best, but that didn't start with real estate. Prior to real estate, I was a semi-pro BMX rider. And at a very young age, Dave Mira, who was the Michael Jordan of BMX, moved to my town and I got to ride with him each and every day. And because he lived there, other top BMXers came to our town. So my skill level exploded just hanging out with him for 6 months because he made the impossible possible. Brian, I'll never forget this time. We had just built a box jump and Dave was like, I'm going to touch my back tire to the ceiling. In my head, I'm thinking that's impossible. You're going to stop your rotation and fall straight down. By the end of the day, the ceiling was filled with tire marks. And then when I wanted to do just a simple bar spin, I wasn't scared anymore. And it's just kind of crazy how you psych yourself out and your biggest opponent, your biggest obstacle are your own beliefs. And sometimes just surrounding yourself with people that have blasted through those limited beliefs really help you kind of accelerate yourself. So in BMX, I surrounded myself with the best of the best. And the people that I was surrounding myself with were my friends. And then when it was competition day, I was competing against them. So through BMX, I learned how to manage risk because everything was risky. I had a lot of injuries, but typically after I fell on something, the next time I was able to do it. 'Cause I'm like, that wasn't that bad. So I learned how to manage risk, which was important for real estate. And then I also learned how to work with the people that you compete against. And as I look back in my life, I give the most thanks to those people that were my competition. They got the most out of me. They created the friction that I needed to kind of have that spark and blow up. So Brian, I don't remember the original question, but I just knew I had to surround myself with the best. And I did the same thing in BMX. And then I moved to real estate and I did the same thing there. And I did the same thing in tech. So I always start with building a network. And a lot of people are very intimidated. They don't really think they can provide any value to these people that are so much better than them. But I learned how to provide value to people that were 10x me at a very young age. And I always tried to provide value first.
Let's even take a step back. So how'd you hook up with this BMX guy? Because like you said, everyone's intimidated. It's like, oh yeah, what am I going to do for them? And how do I even approach them? Walk me through that.
Well, with Dave Mira, I helped him build his skate park and worked at his park for free. Right? He was there. He moved to our town. I heard about it. It was before his video game. He was sponsored by Slim Jim and Split Clothing. He was just a normal dude. He lived at the skate park. It was right before his explosion into X Games and being very wealthy. So I just helped him build his skate park. And we became buddies. And then I started to work at his skate park. And I was there when other top pros from around the world would come, and we'd have sessions till 2 a.m. And that's what we did. If you didn't ride BMX, I couldn't really be your friend because it's all I thought about. And then when I transitioned to real estate, it was almost the same exact model, Brian. I found the best real estate investor in town, and I just started knocking on doors for him. And before I knew it, I worked my way into being his partner. And then I worked my way into starting my own business.
I've heard a lot of people say that too. Like, go find the person you want that's crushing it in your area and give them value for free. Go work for free. I've heard that from so many people, and that is true. Like, especially on the bird dogging side, you find the biggest guy. Why would he ever say no? He's not going to take leads from you.
Yeah, exactly. And, telling someone to go knock on doors is really telling them to get out of here, because 9 out of 10 people are not going to do that. They're not up for the rejection. But I learned so much knocking on the doors of people that were about to lose their house. I really understood who I was talking to. The door would open and I could smell the dinner cooking. I could see kids. I could see the stress on the people's faces. They weren't just an address line. So it gave me very rapid training as a real estate investor. And listen, Brian, there's a lot of other ways to provide value. Not everyone can just work for free. I was young. I thought that was a disadvantage, but it was a huge advantage to be young because people weren't really intimidated by me. They wanted to help me in some weird ways. But other ways you can give value other than working for someone for free is by making connections to other people, right? If Brian and I kind of knew each other, I wanted to work with Brian, and I really cared about what Brian was trying to do. And I listened to where he wants to be in 3 years from now. And then I talk to someone else. I can say, hey, I know this guy, Brian. I'm going to make a connection. And then maybe I'm not big enough to do business with Brian yet, but I connect him with someone else and they do business. And I'm not going to be that guy that's like, oh, I connected you guys. Make sure to give me some money. Like, don't do, if they pass money along, that's great, but don't do that at first. Even if someone makes $1 million, all you did is make a connection. Don't put the friction there. So that's how I brought value to individuals that were 10x me, just by networking and just making connections. Now, I learned another way to bring value, if you want me to get into it, Brian, that I didn't even realize until I was a successful person.
Yeah, 100%. Let's hear it.
So now people are always coming to me. They'll hear these podcasts and they just try to work for me for free, which you can actually do now through my charity. That's another conversation. But people would come to me all the time and they would ask me the most annoying question in the world, 9 out of 10 people. I want to invest in real estate. How should I do it? That's a little bit too broad, right? If someone comes to me and says, hey, I have this deal. They owe 90. They want 160. How can I make them an offer? I can give them a specific piece of advice, right? You want to ask good, specific questions because now I know that you're in the game, right? And then the most important thing is to follow back up with the person and say, hey, I did what you said and it worked. Or I did what you said and it didn't work. Because if you follow back up, now I know that I'm not wasting my time giving you advice. Because after you become really successful, you want other people to be successful. It's just this natural high that takes over. It is lonely at the top, right? You want to help as many people as you can. But there's nothing worse than giving someone advice. They don't follow it. They don't follow back up. You just kind of wasted your time. So to sum it all up, just applying the advice and following back up with that person that you want to mentor you. That's how I got free mentors. I didn't say, will you be my mentor? I asked them specific questions, did it, came back, asked them a follow-up question. And before they knew it, we were talking a few times a week and they introduced me to someone that helped me fund a deal. That's kind of the more natural evolution of getting someone to mentor you without asking, will you mentor me? I've had a lot of mentors and I've never asked someone, will you mentor me? They just become my mentor because I'm providing value to them by being successful. that is actually providing value to them. And they're providing value to me. So it's a mutual exchange that you have to have a mentorship of sorts. And I've had and still have a multi-billionaire mentor that helps me today. When I sold my company, the first thing I did is I tried to find a new mentor because I've never been where I am right now. Right? When I needed someone, like, I've never had this much liquid capital in my life and this much free time. So I made sure to find a mentor to kind of help me through these new times.
I like what you're saying there too about going back and giving feedback. Like, so you find a mentor, because I get people asking me all the time, same kind of questions. Like, how do you do whatever? And you give them tips and then they're gone. You don't know what happened. And 99% of the people aren't going to take your advice because they just want to talk about it. But that 1%, if you actually do it, go back to the guy too, because then it's like, you're right. It would make me feel good knowing I gave someone information that they benefited themselves, and that would start a relationship.
It does. It starts the relationship. You have to be as the mentee, you have to be proactive. You don't want to send them a text this long asking all of this stuff. You have to try a few things and then say, hey, should I do this or this? Like, you want to sum up things as much as possible, but you have to show them that you are moving forward, and then they will help push you. And at some point, your paths might align and you might wind up doing a deal together. That's what happened with me and my company, the Connected Investors. We started off as a social networking site for real estate investors. We quickly realized that real estate investors needed access to private and hard money. And the way people were doing it back in the day was very inefficient. So I met the CEO of Lending Tree, who created a way to have lenders compete. And he essentially helped me architect the lending component that we built into Connected Investors, and wound up becoming a mentor, an advisor, an investor. And Lending Tree tried to actually buy us. It didn't work because we outgrew their offer. We were growing so fast. I'm like, man, I'm going to make more money this year than I'm going to get from this sale, because earlier that year we weren't worth as much, but that's neither here nor there. But the important thing is to make sure you're staying on the radar of certain types of people, because something in his company aligned up. Hey, we want to buy a company. Hey, I know Ross. Let's ask him if he wants to sell. It's funny, but I would guess 75% of company acquisitions, I'm kind of switching gears here, happen that way. They're sitting around the table. We want to get into this space. Does anyone know anyone? Someone says, yeah, I know a guy. And then that's where it starts. They might run a real process, but that gets you to the front of the line. And that's how I wound up selling my company, because I had a relationship with the company that wound up buying me prior to them even wanting to get in our space.
Yeah, and that's so true. It's on. Everyone always says it's cliche. It's like all in who you know, but it really isn't in the world.
It really is.
Okay, so you start. What were you thinking when you started collecting investors? Like, what was the initial goal?
Let me tell you, man. I mapped all that. No, I literally just wanted to create my own countrywide buyers list, if that makes any sense. Because I would get deals. I'd talk to someone who, they lived in a home. They were maybe in foreclosure. They didn't want to sell that home, but they owned a piece of land in Greensboro, North Carolina, that they would basically give away. I'm like, I don't know anyone in Greensboro. Social media didn't really exist back then. Facebook, you had to be smart to get in Facebook. That was not me. C student, hit my head too many times riding my bike, community college. MySpace was just kind of for partying. So I just wanted to build a countrywide buyers list. And that was it. And I was flipping deals into Connected Investors and using that profit to build out new features in Connected Investors, which is why it was built in a very backwards way. We just, every 6 months, we'd, put on something new onto the site. Or after I had a big real estate deal, we would do something really cool, but we never really raised money for that tech company. It was easier for me to make money than to do the dog and pony show and raise money. Once you realize how to flip real estate, you can make a few $100,000. You don't have to give away 20% of your company. It takes just as long. Anyway, so I was just flipping real estate, put it in my tech company.
The things that I see that succeed really well, like in the space, are built for just for like your need, like you wanted to create a buyer's list. Did you ever have a vision, like when you're starting, hey, I'm building something I'm going to sell, or was it just specifically for the need?
It was specifically for the need. After it started to grow, I'm like, ooh, like I did it before tech was 2005 was pretty early. Tech wasn't really as cool then. People didn't want to use our platform. I had a few tech companies that were just 2 or 3 steps ahead. I had a great video platform, by the way, that just was too early. No one would use it. We ran out of money and it was gone. And had we held on, COVID would have really done it. But anyway, that's another podcast. But no, I just started it to meet a need, and I knew I was going to make a lot of money from it just through my real estate, or just being a person of influence in real estate. It got me on stages and just really helped boost my credibility as a young real estate investor.
That's cool. So where do you see a little different direction? Where do you see real estate going now with like, because you have a little bit of a different view and you have a lot of access to a lot of additional data most people don't. Like, what are you seeing coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's exciting because when I first sold Connected Investors, I got to go to First American, and their campus looks like Harvard. They have roads named after them out there. It's really special. And I got to sit down with the top people at a Fortune 100 company and look at all their data that they had. Because First American is the one that they mine all of the data and then process it and sell it to the property streaming softwares, to the estimate softwares, to even the MLSs and stuff like that, I would imagine. I don't know for sure. But they're the ones who like create the data. So I was able to look at data they didn't even know was valuable. And I'm like, you have that? Some data they had that they weren't allowed to sell for certain reasons. But it was just cool to be able to build little tools in the back end for myself to create some advantages. But what they're doing now that I am completely out of the company, they are investing many, many millions in the platform. So if you ever used Connected Investors or the PIN software that was tied to it and it wasn't quite for you, it's because we were kind of like scrapping it together as we went. Now they're redoing it 10x. There's a lot of artificial intelligence, predictive analysis that is going in there. Like First American has rooms of data scientists. Like those guys cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for a low level data scientist. And they have tons of them that can do all sorts of cool stuff. So real estate investing is getting more and more fluid, right? The friction is being removed. And that is both good and also very bad. Because where I made a lot of my money in the beginning was going to the courthouse, looking for pre-foreclosures, pulling the actual files, Brian. I don't know if you ever pulled those manila files and opened them up and smelled them and read through them and copied it down into a notebook because you didn't have a smartphone back then.
Yeah.
But that's how I was able to get a leg up. Here's what's happening in real estate. Essentially, we all know Wall Street plays a big role in real estate now and is keeping things up. The banks, they can't own real estate, but they can give a few thousand houses to their buddy in Wall Street, and then they can go make as much money as they can. I say all that to say that I believe this is the last, maybe decade or half decade that you can be a mom and pop real estate investor before things are completely and totally streamlined and the profit margins get so thin because it's more about scale and liquidity for the big hedge funds than it is for the mom and pop to do a fixer upper. That right now, like if you're on the sidelines, get in. If you're already in real estate, scale up, because I believe that every house will essentially be like a stock, and people will be able to sell bits and pieces of their house, of the future value. I'm already seeing that in some companies. With our charity, we're going to tie that in to the future iterations of how we're able to help people with affordable housing and to save their home. So I believe every house will be a bit of a stock, and it will just be all the brokers will start to go away. Anytime there's a broker involved, it means something's broken, like plain and simple, right? Real estate brokers will be sticking around for a while, a lot longer than I probably even realize on the retail side. But from the investment side, brokers will get cut out very, very, very quickly. Money flow is getting faster and faster. So a lot of the inefficiencies are being fixed. I mean, let's face it, Brian, real estate was the last big piece of the economy not to be like instantly affected by technology. It's been this slow thing, like stocks right away, like insurance, loans, like but then real estate still a slow process. So anyway, it's a really exciting time to be in real estate, and your kids won't be able to be a mom and pop real estate investor. Your kids, definitely not. This is like the last generation of like ground hustlers, I think.
Yeah. And that's interesting too, because tech is moving so fast. Like even like what you're talking about, owning partial, like I was always thinking like with NFTs, it's like you could technically sell on a property a brick and it's tied to an NFT and everyone owns parts of little pieces of things, you know? Let's talk about the charity you're involved with.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and take my shirt off here. Savinghomes.org. Definitely check it out. Just by viewing the website, it helps. So essentially, like I said, Brian, like I made my first million knocking on the doors of people that were in financial distress. I spent my whole career essentially helping people find motivated sellers. And most of the time, that's just someone who's really financially strapped. They're in a really bad kind of place. And real estate investors essentially sell Tylenol to someone's headache, right? These people need help. Real estate investors play an important role. But when I took a step back and thought, how can I make a big impact? How I do anything is how I do everything. The first thing I did is I assembled like just a team of the most savvy real estate investors out there, people that are in the legacy phase of their life, where collectively we're worth $1 billion, that want to go in and make a real impact on the affordable housing side of the equation. Because real estate, we all know, is the number one way to become a millionaire. That's why we're here. I said it on every webinar I've ever done. But I learned that home ownership is the number one way out of poverty in America. So I just kind of moved from one side to the other. And now I'm focusing all my time on that. And anything I do, Brian, I want it to last forever. So with charities, I liked giving to charity, but I felt like after I gave money, I would feed someone for a day and they're hungry again tomorrow. So what can I do that's going to have an everlasting impact? And that's when we came up with the model for the first phase of Saving Homes, to where we specifically help single parents that are about to lose their home to foreclosure save their house. Essentially, almost the same way I did it when I was a real estate investor, but we do it in a nonprofit way. So these individuals can come to Saving Homes, we vet them, and then they can get money to stop their foreclosure, 0%, no payments. Right? We help advise them, help make sure they don't get taken advantage of. Their foreclosure is stopped. We focus on families with children. And after the foreclosure is stopped, we help guide them to the best solution. And what's great is in the future, whenever their house sells or when they refinance it, no pressure, could be a year, could be 10 years, that money then comes back to Saving Homes and we can help another family. So it creates this echo effect, this flywheel, to where every time we help someone, we're like creating like a life jacket that they get to use for a little while. And when they're done with it, they can pass it on to the next person. So the mission of Saving Homes for 2024 is to just perfect and automate that whole solution to where we can help people that are losing their house to foreclosure. It's turning into a bit of a GoFundMe for people that are losing their house. If they're not necessarily a single parent, they can still use the Saving Homes platform to have their family and friends help them out of foreclosure. Because Brian, if your uncle or aunt was in foreclosure, if you gave them money, you can't write that off. If you gave them money, you don't know if it's actually going to go to the bank. So you can't even really help them. Now they can create a Saving Homes page, share it with their friends and family. We handle all the paperwork, get them on the right track. This is why I'm on the podcasts, because I want to bring awareness to it, get some donations. And also we need real estate investors and real estate agents to help, because sometimes they're going to have to sell their house, right? We'll stop the foreclosure. We'll help them find an ethical landlord, but they might not be able to afford their house. So we're going to need an agent. We're going to need an investor like that. Ethical agents, ethical investors that are helping these single parents make sure they get the most and they don't just get chewed up and spit out. Cause I've seen it happen too much. So Brian, that's what we're doing with Saving Homes.
I like it, man. That's interesting. I really like that. How do you vet? So it's single parents with children are the primary target to help out.
Yep.
And then if somebody's in that situation, they're in pre-foreclosure, they would reach out. And then how does somebody qualify?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because of all the data that we have. Remember I said some data that we had, we couldn't make publicly available, but I can basically find every single parent that's about to lose their house in 4 days to foreclosure. Like we're able to verify them through all of the data that we have. And I mean, if someone's losing their house and they have children, I want to help them. If someone's losing their house and they don't have children, if they're not single and don't have children, I want them to be able to use our platform so they can help themselves. But we specifically reach out. When you make donations, it goes specifically to single parents that are losing their house to foreclosure. And, Brian, over 50% of the time, it's an unforeseen medical emergency that really puts these people in a tailspin. It's not negligence. It's not they're out drinking. Actually, through a lot of research, foreclosure only 100% of the time causes such horrible mental health problems that it often leads to alcohol abuse, child abuse, depression, suicide. There's all these studies I've never seen before that just show just how huge this problem is. So by making a donation, you can help homelessness, foreclosure, depression, even divorce. It's the biggest strain someone's ever going to go through is when they're getting kicked out of their house and they have nowhere to go. And right now it's impossible to find a rental. And what landlord wants to rent to someone who just lost their home to foreclosure and they got 2 kids and 2 dogs? Like, sorry, you got to give up the dogs. So now this kid moves to a new school district, doesn't know anyone, doesn't have their dogs anymore. Like it's just the ripple effect on the front end is horrible, but then generationally, it just throws the whole family into a tailspin. So it's, we've been able to help one family so far, and I have never felt a bigger reward than helping this single mom with 4 kids stay in her school district so her kids can finish up at the school they're at and create stability for them and their family. It's a really big deal. And again, the donations, they live on forever. So one donation can help 100 people over time as that money keeps circling and circling and circling. Now you're a real estate investor, so you know that, hey, someone might fall into foreclosure. That's true. But right now everyone has a lot of equity in their house. And we're going to make sure the house gets sold prior to them falling into foreclosure and stuff like that. So there will be times when the saving homes note gets lost, but I think it will be few and far between.
Yeah, and I think you said something really important there too, because when someone's going into foreclosure, like medical bills, things like that, I think a lot of people think, especially when you don't deal with people in that situation all the time, that they're out drinking or being irresponsible. But I think that's really important, that life can smack anybody in the face. And most families are paycheck to paycheck anyways, before you get punched in the face. So yeah, I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, people, myself included, right? I'm like, oh, they didn't plan well. It's their fault. That's why we focus on the children. What did that child do? They had a dad that got laid off or something. Like it's just because of AI or who knows what it was from. But it's, most families, 60% of families don't have 3 months of bills saved. So if you're listening to this and you have 3 months there, you are better off than nearly 7 out of 10 people that you see when you're walking around the streets. The sadder statistic is most people, 60% of those people don't even have $1,000 in their savings account. Inflation. So if you have $1,000 in your savings account, you are very, very fortunate. And even just donating $10 or sharing the website makes a monumentally huge difference. And if you're like 10 years ahead, that's when you get to take a step back and say, how can I help? Right? Because you got to pull some people out of the water after you've been that far ahead. So I know a lot of your listeners are very successful real estate investors, have made tons off of motivated sellers. So this is a great way to give back. And if you're a real estate agent, you can actually use Saving Homes as your give back program. Every time you close on a house, you can give back a percentage to Saving Homes. A lot of people do that for different charities, but this charity is specifically designed to help save homes, and we need realtors to help as well. So it's a really big win-win, and I'm really excited to get more success stories like we recently got. I mean, Brian, this lady, she called her kids at school and told them like, hey, we have to move. The kids were crying. Like, it's just, the ripple effect is crazy. And a lot of us have benefited off of other people having to move fast. So it's nice to be able to kind of give back in a way. Real estate investors are not evil. They're not bad. Some of them are. They are needed in the economy. But as real estate investors, we often block out that other side and just stay focused on the personal financial gain. So it's nice to be able to give back and just help people get a little stable, even if it's only for a few more years, right? That kid doesn't lose their best friend next door. And we can help find them a house in their area once they're not in foreclosure. So just a breath of fresh air. And I'm really excited about it because everything I've done in life has led up to this. I learned real estate. I learned tech. I built a network of the Dave Miras of the world that are coming together for this. Than Merrill is on the board. A lot of people know who Than is. So a lot of really cool people are coming together to help with this and, make a donation and watch it grow.
That's cool, man. Where's the best place if anyone wants to get involved? Give us the website again.
Yeah. savinghomes.org. savinghomes.org. Check it out. Like I said, just viewing it helps. Sharing it is great. Making a donation, even if it's $5, is amazing. And yeah, we'll be looking for, if you're a real estate investor or an agent and you want to be notified when sometimes we have to sell houses in those areas, few and far between, you can go ahead, just make a donation. We'll get you on the list. We'll have your zip code and stuff like that. And we'll be reaching out when we need help in those different areas. Because if you don't have leads in real estate, I mean, you're not in real estate, right? If I could share the biggest mistake I ever made in real estate before we go, Brian.
Yeah, let's hear it. That's a good one.
This was the biggest mistake I made when I first started. I would start doing a lot of lead gen, maybe knocking on doors, doing all this. And then whenever I had a deal, I would stop doing lead gen and try to work that deal. And then what would wind up happening, 80% of the time, the deal would fall apart. That's just how it is. So then I had to start all over again, a little discouraged, a little upset. I didn't just build a machine that was just bringing me in leads. It caused a lot of false starts in the beginning and money I was spending in my head that I didn't even have. Oh, I'm going to make all this money on this deal. Oh, the deal fell through. That's part of real estate. That's why you got to keep the leads coming in, which is why I love that sign. If you're watching this on YouTube or something, behind you, we got houses. That's great.
Oh, yeah. It's based on the bandit signs.
Yeah.
Well, it's good stuff, man. Yeah, we're almost out of time. Hey, quick question. What's your favorite book? Top book you'd recommend?
Favorite book, first book I ever read, Think and Grow Rich. It's just all about the habits of habits make everything, no matter what it is, whether it's a tech company, a real estate company, a charity, BMX. It's the habits that make the success 90% of the time. And it's the foundation for you to build your habits on.
I agree. That's one of the top books. If you think it and can believe it, you can achieve it.
Yeah. I mean, the way that you talk to yourself in your head is so important. But actually, you just reminded me, when it comes to books, I'm not allowed to sell real estate information anymore. But Brian, I give away all the stuff I used to sell for like thousands of bucks. If you want me to give it to your viewers, I mean, if you made it to the end, you're pretty serious.
100%.
Because I don't have a business on that side selling any information. If you just send me an email, you don't have to talk to me. You can just say, send me the stuff. I'll send you a whole package of all of our stuff, my books, courses, my success habits that I put in this very concise book. After I sold my company, I wanted to get all of my best habits together. It's just ross@successcap.com. ross@successcap.com. Shoot me an email. Just let me know what podcast. Just say, hey, you were on with Brian. Send me the gifts and I'll just shoot the gifts back. Or if you want to talk charity, that goes right to me. So I'll be checking it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes too. Anyone listening, yeah, check it out on our website or on Apple, wherever you're listening. Hey, Ross, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate you.
This was great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, sure thing. And everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time, get out there, crush it, close some deals. We'll see you guys.